A wrestling show aired on July 23rd, 2025. It wasn't a good one, but it was a wrestling show. And we're going to talk about it. But I really don't care to talk about it. But we're going to talk about it anyway because we want to make some fun of it, I guess. We're going to try to. Usually these shows are so boring that there's not even anything fun to talk about. You know, I was listening to Jason Whitlock earlier, and he had Steve Kim on, and Steve Kim basically says that, he's a, boxing reporter and, general sports, but primarily boxing. And he talked about how he doesn't get engaged with the games anymore. He said he just basically uses the games as content. It's his job to follow the games. He doesn't really even enjoy them anymore. I think I'm not quite that far because I haven't been doing this that long, and I'm not miserable. He didn't sound miserable either, but he says that sometimes he just wants things to happen just so he can cover the chaos. And I realized, that's very important. I like covering the chaos. I like when crazy stuff is happening. That's when things are fun, But I have no real interest in discussing a lot of these individual matches that occur on Raw, SmackDown, NXT, or Dynamite. I just don't care, Most of them, 99% of these matches are completely and totally obvious, who's going to win. So you're basically just waiting to get there, or you're hoping something happens during the match that's fun and worth talking about. But most of the time, no, there's nothing fun really happening. So these matches are just content. They're just stuff for me to cover. So I'm going to have to come up with other stuff, jokes and things, news clips and things, I guess. So we got to talk about Dynamite. They're back in their medieval setting. I do like the building. I think the building has some charm. I will say this, when you're running a residency, you're essentially running a territory. I said last week, you got to do something to get the people to come back. Now, they did tease something for next week that the people might like, and you might actually draw a bigger number next week than you did this week. They just threw this week away, but next week they're actually going to try. And it all surrounds Hangman Page versus Moxley because they're not done. Hangman Page beat Wheeler Yuta in the first match on the show with the Buckshot Lariat. Thank God it was short because Wheeler Yuta sucks, and anybody who is a Wheeler Yuta fan is obviously trolling. After the match, Wheeler Yuta got beat with the chain and he almost got lynched. And then Hangman Page said to Yuta as he was bleeding all over himself and nearly dying that nobody is coming to help him. Notice how nobody came out there to help him. Basically, they're once again trying to talk sense into Wheeler Yuta. Tell him that nobody loves him, nobody likes him, and that he should figure this thing out on his own. But weren't they doing this a year or two ago? I feel like they've been doing this a long time when this whole thing where Wheeler Yuta needs to smarten up. But he's not smart. He's a dumbass. So Hangman Page was very mad about Colt Cabana, who apparently got lynched on Collision last week in Chicago, like everybody's supposed to give a shit. It wasn't important enough to do on Dynamite, so ain't no point in getting my dander up about it. Moxley, later in the show, said that Hangman Page found something on the day of All In that he didn't know that he had. But the challenge now is that Hangman's got to get up and do it again. He's got to get up and do it again. And Moxley says that he's not going to bitch about losing. And he wasn't really rushing into a rematch because he's got mistakes he's got to fix. But he says tonight we're going to find out who Hangman Page is leaving All In. We know what kind of man he was when he walked in. But we got to find out what kind of man he is when he leaves. After Mark Briscoe defeated Claudio Castagnoli, which was absolute embarrassment. One of the most boring matches I've ever had the unfortunate pleasure of sitting through. Hangman Page got on the microphone. Moxley got on the microphone and said that he didn't want anybody getting too comfortable just because Hangman Page beat him. But Hangman Page isn't really the world champion. He can't really handle this. So Hangman just walked to the ring, just walked directly to the ring, and then says that Moxley is going to get a rematch next week. And since Moxley is now the challenger, he's got to do things by Hangman's rules. And because even though Hangman came up with the Texas Death idea, that was his idea, right? But this time is really by Hangman's rules, which is everybody banned from ringside. So that was the big announcement as the show was going off the air, is that they're going to do Moxley versus Hangman once more in Chicago in a small building. This time, it's going to be a straight up wrestling match with all the seconds and all the minions banned from ringside. You know what? I'm actually looking forward to this because I needed a wrestling match of some substance that did not have a bunch of run-ins. So it ought to be interesting. I think the AEW fan base will be really excited for it. I personally am ambivalent about the whole thing. I figured they were going to do a quick rematch when Moxley didn't leave the title picture. I figured they were, just kind of heating them back up with the whole Colt Cabana thing. It's a little soon to do a rematch, but these guys need some help. Obviously, they need to sell some tickets because this residency wasn't looking very good. But hopefully this boosted business a little bit for them. I hope it did. It would be really bad if it didn't. It would be really bad for them if it didn't. Next, Billy Starks is hanging out backstage with Athena. Athena is wearing a Shark Week hat. She looks goofy. She looks like a child that was wearing one of those Burger King crowns that you get for your birthday. And she's supposed to be a world champion. And she's supposed to be like some kind of sinister supervillain. As she's, pacing behind Billy Starks and what are we going to do? We're going to beat up that musty ass hoe. Or something like that. She just called Toni Storm a musty ass hoe, which I thought was funny. I wrote it down, musty ass hoe. But I didn't think of anything else that she was talking about. And apparently Billy Starks is going to wrestle Toni Storm, and then that happens. And Billy Starks got a whole lot of offense in this match. She actually almost beat Toni on a couple of occasions with roll-ups. I mean, it's a little too much. I get it. Billy Starks is young. They want to show her off. But isn't Athena the number one contender? Why isn't Athena wrestling on this show? Why is Billy Starks getting the match and Athena has to wrestle on, I'm about to say Rampage, god damn it, Collision? I don't know. I don't get that. Anyway, Toni Storm won with the chicken wing. Interesting decision of the move. I mean, I like the chicken wing. Crossface chicken wing is a good move. They're doing a really good job when it comes to the coloring of Toni Storm. They're doing the black, white, and blood, which I think is very smart, which, where red is the only color that pops from her black and white screen, which is an upgrade from what they were doing before. I really like that. I like comic books in the black, white, and blood sort of theme. So it was pretty nice. So anyway, Toni Storm won, and Athena was watching from the balcony. She wasn't paying attention when Billy Starks hit her in the head with a belt. And then Billy Starks waved for Toni Storm to come down to the ring. They used the contract. When Athena got there, however, it took a little bit. But when she got there, she just hit Toni Storm with the contract because it's on a metal pad. And then they beat up Toni Storm. And Alex Windsor, Mrs. Ospreay, ran to the ring and helped fight these two girls off. And then it was announced that Alex Windsor, who I don't believe has ever wrestled a match for AEW, is getting a Ring of Honor title match on Collision. Okie dokie. Again, you would think the plan should be to showcase Athena and your new signing, this Alex Windsor young lady. But now, I guess to see them, you have to watch them on Collision. But why? It's not like anything else was on this show that was of any importance that you couldn't have showcased your newest signing and you're a number one contender for the women's world title. I think Tony needs to tighten up on the kinds of people he decides to focus on the show. Also, I do like Toni Storm's wrestling gear. She's wrestling in a dress, and I think that's phenomenal. It really fits her character. She's wearing, sports shorts underneath it, but it's very cool for her character to be wrestling in a dress. I like that. Sometimes unique things like that really help you stand out. So the musty ass hoe, Toni Storm, ended up surviving. And it's going to lead to a tag team match, no doubt. But I can't believe they had Athena out there wearing a Shark Week hat. She looked so goofy. And this is somebody that you're trying to get over and get people to believe is a world champion. And not only is she trying to act like some villain from Inspector Gadget, but now she's also wearing a goofy ass hat. I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. It ain't for me to get, I guess. All right, so they're doing a tag team tournament. And apparently the Guns won't be in it because one of the Guns is hurt. So that's unfortunate. He just came back and they're gone again. Grand opening, grand closing. So they decided to have the first match in this tournament on this show. Now, I can tell you how much thought Tony Khan put into this. There are no other teams even announced for the tournament. No other teams are announced. And it's I want to say 18 tournament. And the only two that were announced were these two. Jet Speed versus FTR. It's a pretty lengthy match. Not a terrible match either, except the fact that I don't want to watch Mike Bailey. I have no interest in Mike Bailey matches. I do not care at all whatsoever in this motherfucker. Daniel San should fuck off. Okay? Anyway, FTR won, which is what I expected. After the match, FTR and Stokely took the mic, or Stokely said that Edge belonged in prison because he is not a wrestler, and then he says that Edge is a cancer onto AEW. After this, Edge's theme music plays. He gets a little serenade from the crowd. And then he's told, of course, that he can't touch FTR. So he says that he brought some friends who can touch FTR. And they're in the business of hurting people. So Lashley and Shelton Benjamin come down to the ring because they're the APA all of a sudden. They're the black APA. I don't hate that idea, by the way. And they get into a fight with FTR. And I'm not so sure what's happening, because they were scrapping a little bit, and then FTR was trying to run. So it was like they were trying to run, but they were also fighting. I'm like, are you fighting or are you fleeing? What are we doing? So you had the security guys and referees getting in between them, and it would look like somebody from FTR is trying to run, and then either Lashley or Shelton would catch them, and then they'd be forced to fight. And I'd be like, okay, well, look, I don't know what's going on at this point, but they're just doing shit, okay? So they basically gave away that FTR is probably going to end up winning the tournaments, and that the Hurt Business has just turned babyface because now they're helping Edge. Now, obviously, I'm not going to... It's probably wrong to say that they're turning babyface. It would probably be more correct to say that they're tweeners, which I don't like that designation, but that they're willing to fight if paid. They're willing to fight other heels, which is perfectly fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, especially since everybody seems to hate FTR as is anyway. I can't imagine any other team is going to win this tournament, so there's no point in really talking about it. Obviously, we're just going to get to FTR versus the Hurt Business. And you know what? We probably should have just had that match be the winners fight the Hurt Business between Jet Speed and FTR. That way, we could have saved ourselves some trouble getting there. But at the same time, they got it field television time, so they're going to pump it up. Apparently, they're going to put Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian in this thing as a tag team. That's how far we're scraping the bottom of AEW for tag teams. And this was supposed to be a company that was founded on the idea of great tag team wrestling. Or, who knows? Maybe the Young Bucks will win. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Do I care? No. No. Don't give a fuck at all. Anyway, MJF, he's less than happy with Hangman Page and with the Hurt Business. Earlier in the night, Hangman Page and MJF had words. MJF is talking trash to Hangman as usual. But Hangman is hip to his game. He says that MJF is only getting a title shot for 2 ways. 1, he uses that contract, or 2, he's going to earn it. But since he's a gutless coward, he knows that he's not going to do either one of them. Later, MJF is upset at Lashley and the Hurt Business for helping Edge and not helping him get the world title. At this point, Lashley hems up MJF again, starts squeezing him at the throat, and then said he wanted him out of the Hurt Business because all he talks about is himself. Me, 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 me. I. He's tired of it. He wants him out. I'm like, damn, that was fast. He literally was in the group 2 or 3 weeks, and they're going to kick him out already. It feels like there was no plan here. If they're already trying to renege on this thing, you could have at least ran it for, 4 months or something like that. He was only in the group, I'd say 8 weeks, maybe. And the whole thing sort of lost steam the moment he was fully in the group. Then it kind of lost its way. But whatever. It's a very strange decision to even tease that MJF shouldn't be in the Hurt Business anymore. With all the time it took to get him in, for them to now try to work hard on getting him out. I don't know, but it hasn't been made official yet, but it seems very bizarre that they would work so hard to get him in there only to kick him out later. But MJF did make a solid point that he worked extremely hard to get the thumbs up and, to get the help to be in the Hurt Business. But Edge, well, he didn't have to work. He didn't have to do anything. He probably just paid them. And he's kind of like, shit, if I could have done that, I would have just done that. Which, is a good point. Shit. MJF came out later, says that he doesn't need Lashley to win the world title, and that Hangman Page is a coward who won't fight him unless he uses his contract. And then he said he's not going to use his contract, but he will defeat Hangman Page for the world title. It seems like, and I think Hangman gave it away, that MJF is trying to just get a title shot and likely use the contract if he loses or something like that as a sort of plan B. But okay, I always thought that those contracts, if you're going to do a Money in the Bank kind of situation, that would probably be a fun way of doing it, is where a guy gets a title shot, just kind of has one because he won a tournament or a battle royal or something, while also being the Money in the Bank winner, and then he loses and then cashes in the Money in the Bank and wins the second match. I think that might be a cool way of doing it, because they've never done that before. And that's seemingly the direction they're kind of teasing with MJF, trying to goad Hangman Page into giving him a title shot rather than him having to use his contract. Which I don't even understand why MJF cares how it happens, because I don't think it should matter that much. But I don't know. Maybe we just have to wait for this thing to play out. Anyway, Mark Briscoe interrupts, wants to fight MJF, and MJF refuses, says that he's a loser, that he sucks, he's white trash, and that nobody thinks he's a top guy. Mark Briscoe is a joke, a clown they bring out for cheap laughs, and nobody respects Mark, but everybody respected Jay. Wrong kid died. So when Mark Briscoe ran to the ring to try to fight MJF, of course MJF ran away. This is the kind of stuff that pisses Lashley off, no doubt. You're supposed to be in the business of hurting people. You can't be in the business of running away. But MJF always runs away. Always runs away. So I don't understand why we're doing MJF versus Mark Briscoe. Yes, MJF's character works very well against sort of more real, representing the average Joe kind of characters. But he says pretty much the same stuff all the time. Basically, some variation of "you're poor and white trash." That's like 70% of MJF's promo, is that you're poor and white trash, and then something personal is like the other 30%. And I can't get into the Mark Briscoe thing. He's been beat down so much, and they haven't given him anything of note. Yes, he's beaten Claudio, but who cares? He didn't beat anybody that is being pushed. Claudio isn't being pushed. Claudio is a silhouette. He's a specter. He barely exists in AEW. He exists to do Moxley's dirty work, and that's it. He doesn't talk. I don't even think he blinks. He should be checked for pulse. He's basically a walking corpse. Infinitely worse than his time in WWE. Next, Will Ospreay came out and said he's been struggling with neck injuries for 10 months and that he's got 2 bulging discs, herniated discs in his neck, but said that he's been working through it because he made a promise to get the world title back, and now he's got it. So now that we've got the title back, he says that he's going to go and get treated for these herniated discs in his spinal cord, but he should be back for Forbidden Door. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I looked it up. It takes 4 to 6 months to treat 2 herniated discs in his neck. So unless this is a work, this guy's got Wolverine healing factor, or he's on human growth hormone or something like that. Okay, there's no way he's going to make Forbidden Door and wrestle at that show if he's got a bad neck injury. Now, obviously, this is one of those situations where it sucks for AEW because Will Ospreay is a guy they were building their company around. They looked forward to him every week. The fans did. He obviously was factored into their long-term plan. And this is where the style that he works is one of those big old I told you so's. There's just so many of these guys who end up with fucked up necks and everything else because they were hanging out in Japan, getting dropped on their head and neck from high places and from stiff clotheslines and stiff bumps. And it's unfortunate, hopefully he's smartened up. Hopefully it's not too bad. And it sounds worse than it really is. But he's got to modify his style. He can't go all out anymore. You're wrestling, twice, maybe 2-3 times a month. Depends on whether he still takes indies, which I don't think he does. So it means he's wrestling on Dynamite if he wrestles, and then maybe there's a pay-per-view that weekend too. So maybe twice a week, But when you're going all out and you're jumping all over the place and you're flipping all over the place, that stuff starts to add up, especially as you get older. And I know Will Ospreay has toned down quite a bit from, 5 or 10 years ago when he was being made fun of by Vader and all that sort of stuff, which I know was even long ago, almost 10 years ago, because Vader's been dead for a while. It's not enough. You have to work a safer style if you plan to be the franchise player of AEW. At the same time, though, that's not what their fans want. Their fans want these guys to be all or nothing, all in or all out. And you got to learn that a regular match on a Wednesday night does not require for you to go out there and almost break your neck. It's stupid. It's stupid. See, this is the stuff that when you watch old wrestling, they knew that. They knew that random house shows is not where unless it's a really big show, then you work very hard. But for regular TV matches and stuff like that, you go easy. You cruise through those. You do the bare fucking minimum. And I'm not even one of those fans that are upset by wrestlers doing the bare minimum, because I understand physically there's only so many bumps that you're going to be able to take, so limit those bumps. This is why jobbers are important. This is why matches should be shorter. This is why you shouldn't have top guys going in there getting dropped on their head by fucking midgets every fucking week. No. You never know when somebody's, even if it's a perfectly serviceable bump, even if you took the bump right, it hurts. And it adds up over time. It's not even necessarily a bad, crazy spot or something like that. Just the act of taking back bumps wears on your back, spine, neck, etc. You should be doing that as little as possible. If you can get away with doing a 4-minute match, why wouldn't you? Nobody's asking you to work the main event of All In 4 minutes. But if this match doesn't mean anything and it's on television, work the match like it's going to be 6 minutes and go home. That's why I'm not mad at Okada. Everybody's mad at Okada. Oh, he's lazy. What the fuck? He been working his ass off for 10 years, breaking his neck in every match possible, from tournaments to everything else. Now he realizes he's got a name. He doesn't have to go that hard, and he's not going that hard. And he still gets the same amount of reaction. He still gets paid the same damn thing. And if he needs to turn it up, he can, because he's been reserving himself all this time. These guys need to smarten up, But the WWE guys, they already got this shit figured out. The Roman Reigns and the Randy Ortons, they already got this shit figured out a long time ago. It's not just the schedule. It's also the style. And Ospreay wants to go out there and be 5-star general and 6-star matches and all that shit without realizing sometimes it's the knees, but it's worse when it's the neck. The knees is bad enough. The back is pretty fucking bad. So, like, if your knees go bad, okay, that sucks. If your back goes bad, that is terrible. But if your neck goes bad, that's the shits. All right? Because neck means fingers. It means, like, everything. Like, no way. You don't want a bad neck. All right? A bad back is for your lower extremities and everything is not good. Your inability to walk, lift, to do anything. And the knees, you can't walk and all that kind of stuff. No spring in your step. But you can still work with bad knees. You can still work with bad neck, bad back, and a bad neck. But you don't want to take that chance with the neck because it can shut down those arms. There have been guys who have had, neck injuries and their arms have shut down. I think that's what happened to Bubba Ray Dudley in a match once. He said he had a pinched nerve in his neck or something like that. And it affected his arms, like in the middle of the match. I think that's how he ended up dropping Triple H on his head or something like that. It was some injury that he did to somebody. When he said that basically it was an injury to his neck and it weakened his arms. Like, you don't want that. No way. This is one of the worst injuries you could possibly have, is an injured neck. So he needs to take more time. Fuck Forbidden Door. He needs to take more time. Even if he can wrestle by Forbidden Door, AEW fans are not going to miss you. Okay? Take the 6 months or the 4 months or whatever to get in tip-top shape and then modify your style so you don't have to go out there and kill yourself. And if you do things the right way, most fans won't even notice. And you'll be fine. Okay? And here's hoping Will Ospreay turns out okay. And it sucks that this happened right after the Adam Cole thing. Literally 2 weeks ago, we're sitting here having this conversation about Adam Cole, who looks sickly. At least he looked like, he had been kept in a cage for 2 months and was let out. He hadn't even seen daylight in 2 months. Well, Ospreay looks perfectly healthy except for the fact that his neck's bowed, So, hopefully the guy is okay, man. This sucks. I don't like to hear this shit because I want these guys to be able to walk away from the business in as much of one piece as possible with all the original parts, You don't want bolts and shit in your neck, bolts and shit in your ankles and all that. I mean, that just comes with the business, but there are some matches where you need to be on that A tier and trying to do your best, but then most of your matches, you do not need to do that. You're wrestling Wheeler Yuta on fucking Dynamite. There's no reason Wheeler Yuta should be dropping you on your head or doing anything that could severely damage a part of your body. He's a low card guy. Fuck that. No. And AEW guys are starting to learn. As these injuries start to rack up, you're going to see that these guys are going to make a change. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Next, Sky Blue, Julia Hart, and Tekla are officially a faction, and Willow Nightingale wants to fight Tekla. Willow Nightingale, man, I want her off of my TV and in my kitchen. That's what I want. I want Willow Nightingale off TV and in my kitchen. Can you make it happen, Captain? Swerve Strickland wrestled Hechicero. The match ended in disqualification because Lance Archer and other members of the Don Callis family jumped in the ring and beat up Swerve. Hechicero is a good wrestler, but he never wins, ever. Like, ever. Afterwards, Bandito, Brody King, made the save and got Swerve fat out of the fire. Okada then hit Swerve with a chair, but that wasn't enough. Swerve ended up fighting back, and Okada ended up fleeing away. It was alright. Swerve is Superman all of a sudden. You hit him with a chair, he doesn't really sell it, he doesn't stay down, he just basically gets back up and fights you off. Okay. I mean, probably would have worked better if Okada would have gotten the upper hand here. At least hit him with the chair and ran, which might have been better, but nope. Swerve got to get something in on you. Swerve and Okada sounds like it might be fun for a pay-per-view match. You might actually get Okada putting in some work in that match. Hechicero is, I read an article, I think the CMLL guys, some of them are going to be under dual contracts, or they're going to be under AEW and CMLL contracts. I'm sure that's very exciting for Tony Khan and all of the guys who are going to be working that system. But for somebody like me, unless you're giving these guys some wins or exposing them in a positive way, I don't understand what you're paying them for. What you need Hechicero on your roster for? Okay, I went to the bathroom. I paused it. I went to the bathroom. I forgot what I was going to say. I just completely forgot where I was going with that. It don't matter no more. Okay, forget it. This has never happened to me before. Anyway, that's it for AEW Dynamite. It was a shabby show as usual. I don't know why the Death Riders are still a thing. They don't have any heat. Nobody likes them. The crowd don't even love to hate them. They just hate them. And the crowd is kind of sleepy. Like the Tony Storm match, I think people got into that. I think people kind of got into the Hechicero and Swerve thing. Hangman still has the crowd, but I can tell you for sure that Moxley and all those guys, the people are kind of burned out on them. Maybe we don't need another Moxley versus Hangman Page match. At the same time, though, the company probably needs it because it might be the only thing that can actually draw in that building after they've seen everything possible. What is there left to do except, throw a big match out there? They're not doing any real major angles, and they put all that work in to build up MJF in the Hurt Business, and then they turned around and they're already threatening to take him out. I mean, this is ridiculous. And now his only other feud is with Mark Briscoe, who nobody believes in. So all of this is very unfortunate. AEW doesn't look like it's going to be good anytime soon. They need to shake things up, which they should probably, I hate to say, they should probably bring some people up from Ring of Honor and actually start pushing them. We see the same people pretty much every week, which is, fine. But the crowd doesn't seem to be that excited for Jet Speed or anybody outside of the real core of major guys like Hangman and Ospreay and Swerve. They don't seem to be hot for any of the heels. None of the heels have a lot of heat, except for get the fuck off my TV screen heat. And for all the stars and everything that Meltzer has bestowed upon them, no matter how much he talks about them, there does not seem to be a big transition to television or to the live audience about AEW, And it's an interesting thing that a lot of the buzz for AEW exists online, and not a lot of it is in real life. And we've known that for a while, but there was a short time where that buzz was synchronized. The online buzz and met the real life buzz, and it was hot. But, people are saying every episode of Dynamite is the best. Meanwhile, the people are not coming to the building, and, their TV ratings are waxing and waning. But at the same time, they do okay on pay-per-view. I think the pay-per-view was suggested to be about 160,000 buys. I would challenge that. I will also challenge that they had 30,000 people in that building for All In. I'll wait for a confirmation on those things. But maybe it's one of those products where people don't care about AEW week to week. They only care about the pay-per-views. And that's an interesting way to carry a company. But they have 2 weekly shows they have to fill. So I guess they'll have to figure that part out. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.